It's always like an exciting day, but there's always so much work that goes into that too, in a good way.
Yeah, and it's going to be, it takes a long time to learn, anything new, and but they're already a Midwestern person, so it's less.
Awesome. Okay, I think we're good to go. We're live. So good morning, everyone. Welcome back for a chamber chat. This morning I have Walter with the SBDC. It's so hard to say that fast, by the way. It's like a tongue twister.
Oh yeah.
But we're excited because, of course, last week we talked a little bit about that Restaurant Revitalization Fund that is still going on right now. So we're going to talk to you a little bit more about that and talk about some of the resources. And then for those of you watching, if you will just drop your questions that you have in the comments, and we'll try to get as many of those answered as we can today. And of course, as always, I want to encourage you to like and comment and share the Facebook Live. We want to make sure that anyone who is eligible for this funding knows about it. And that's kind of the first step, is just getting the information out there. So I want to ask all of you, thank you for watching, but also ask you to take one more step and share that so that more people can see it, so that more people know about it. And then Walter, I'm going to kind of just turn it over to you and let you just walk through some of the key points and talk to us about how to go through that process, and then maybe some of the other resources available.
Sure thing. Thank you again for inviting me to talk to your audience there. I'm Walter with the Small Business Development Center in Wichita Falls. We're housed at Midwestern, but the Small Business Development Center program is a national program. So there are SBDCs all over the U.S. So, we're funded by the SBA. We're funded by the state of Texas to help people start and grow businesses. And then last year, when the CARES Act passed, the SBA tasked SBDCs specifically to get out and work with businesses on disaster loans, PPP, stuff like this, venue grants. Just so if there is a COVID-related program for a business in Texas, or you have questions about that stuff, call our office and we'll dig up some information for you. But today we're talking about the Restaurant Revitalization Fund. This was created in the most recent stimulus that passed earlier this year. And so it should be open to take applications at 11 a.m. Central. 11 a.m. Central.
Today.
So today. So you can go online and you can go ahead and register in advance to get your username and your password. So you can go to the SBA website and start that process. But you actually won't able to begin to do your application until 11, which is going to be really soon. And my phone is I've silenced it so it doesn't explode while we're doing this, but my inbox has already exploded.
I found that one of my favorite pastimes now is to come up with questions to just try to stump Walter.
Yeah, you and everybody else. So and it's good that you bring that up, because the SBA, now while there is a hotline that you can call with specific questions on this stuff, the SBA has already said that they're not really going to do a lot of hand-holding or assistance on the application process, because they don't want to play favorites. And this is different. This is a grant separate from a loan. So that was their excuse, but they have tasked the SBDC and some other program partners to be able to answer questions. And so pretty much anything that's been out on the RRF, so Restaurant Revitalization Fund, I have read it a few times to make sure it's stored upstairs, or if I don't know the answer, I know usually where to go get it. So, we were talking about SBDCs being all over the United States. We actually do have some international ones, but because this grant is a federal grant, it's going to be super competitive. Every restaurant in the U.S. is going to be able to apply. And if you have a favorite place to eat, it's like at your hole in the wall vacation spot, send them a Facebook message, call them, send them an email, do whatever you can to spread the word to your restaurants, because this is specifically for them. And again, we don't want to, as a guy who's from a rural community and does a lot of work in rural communities, I don't want us to hear about it until after all the money's gone, because that does us no good, Exactly. And there's all kinds of other assistance out there that some more urban areas can take advantage of, some funding that they got, that stuff that came through the CARES Act that didn't actually make it to the rural communities. So talk to your restaurants, make sure they know about it. I beat the street several days over the past couple of weeks in different communities, and I'd say probably 7 out of 10 did not know what I was talking about. they're like, wait, what restaurant grant? You're like, are you talking about PPP? I'm like, no, this is something totally different.
Yeah.
And it's just for restaurants. So if you want more information on that, you can go to the SBA website, sba.gov. The .gov is the important part. Anytime you're getting an email from the SBA, just make sure you're looking for that .gov at the end. So sba.gov /RRF, so Restaurant Revitalization Fund. That's where you can click the link to go to the application portal. That's where you can download the sample application if you want to work on it offline and then log in and then try and do it all together at the same time. But by looking at the sample application, you know what questions are going to ask. There's a checklist of the different documentation that you're going to need to scan and be ready to upload, which is, again, like a little tedious sometimes, but you can be pulling together that stuff right now. You can also apply through fax or through telephone. If you need to do that, I don't really advise that. I advise most people to find a stable internet connection. If you're not very computer savvy, which I know, again, some mom and pop restaurants are usually busy running the business, find somebody that you trust, talk to your CPA. I can assist you with the application process, but I can really only do so much because there's just one of me for 13 counties. But let's just kind of run over some of the high level stuff for the restaurant grant. And really, who are we talking about? So we say restaurants, but there could be certain situations where other businesses that aren't like a traditional, brick and mortar restaurant, that they're eligible to apply for this. Like a bowling alley is an example. Well, it just depends. Yes, your primary activity is like a bowling alley, but if you have a snack bar in there, and that snack bar makes up at least a third of your gross sales, then it's possible. No, that one didn't get silenced.
You have too many cell phones.
Yeah.
And food trucks,
so
right?
least if it's at least a portion of your sales, and again, and the specifics on this are on the website, but so it's restaurants, snack bars, a food stand, a concession stand. If it's its own legal entity as a part of something, or as a part of something else, or it's not for nonprofits. So if you are a nonprofit that operates a concession stand, this is not for you. So we're talking about for-profit businesses. It also includes bars or lounges, taverns, inns, brew pubs. What else? Wineries, distilleries, and breweries to a certain extent. Again, there's some caveats you need to watch out for as far as what your total gross sales are and how much of that is going directly to the customer at that location. Because again, we got to think about what's the mission of this restaurant grant. It's to help restaurants adapt and recover some from being closed for a big chunk of the year last year, or even if they weren't closed for the biggest chunk of the year. There were limitations, capacity. There was increased expenses that they had on, putting up sneeze barriers or 50% seating or whatever the different thing is. I don't know if I mentioned, but food trucks are also included on that. So if you're a food truck, which a lot of food trucks did okay last year because they by their very nature are able to operate and do, whatever. And so they are pretty much just one big drive-through window.
We've heard mixed stories on that, Walter, because we actually have a really big food truck championship of Texas coming up on June the 5th. Yeah, just had to get that plug in. But a lot of the trucks that we've been talking with, we're still going to have a really good showing of trucks. So I'm really excited. But it kind of seems like it went one of two ways. So the trucks that were really dependent on big events for their business really struggled last year. And the trucks that weren't, that had a stable, like our local food truck, I think probably did okay. I don't actually know. I haven't talked to him, but I'm assuming that he did okay. Because
listen, I've spent some money with Daddy Bob's.
You know exactly what I was talking about. That's right. Yeah, because they're in Wichita Falls too. Yeah, we love Daddy Bob's. Yum.
So the deal on that is like if you're a food truck that did okay last year because you found a perfect location, or you hustled and found a new location, and you spread the love and you got outside of the your main area. It's really when you can apply, but when you get to the part to where you will calculate what your grant amount could be, if you had a better year in 2020 than you did in 2019, then you're not going to the formula will end up with a zero. That's why and so if you're a food truck that did okay last year because of more customers not wanting to go to a sit-down restaurant, and so you picked up some of that overflow, then this is not going to be for you. But again, you had an okay year last year if you're one of those people. So,
I have hugely mixed feelings over this, Walter, and I'm sure you've already gotten an earful of this from other people as well, but some of our restaurants really and I mentioned this, I think last time we talked, but some of our restaurants really went above and beyond to find ways to keep serving their customers too. I mean, and that was not easy. That was some sleepless nights figuring out how to do that and how to make that work.
Costs extra money, it costs staff time,
yes.
It costs,
yes,
sleep.
well, and just the energy putting into it, to figure out how to make that happen, and the entrepreneurship that requires to adapt like that so quickly, and then find a way to still, keep your business going, to find additional revenue streams, whatever it may be. But it's a little bit frustrating that it seems like the ones who did that are the ones who get punished through this grant opportunity.
That's partially true. All right. So if you adapted, right, and you learned lessons, you made better relationships with your customers, you expanded your product line, you brought in a new revenue stream or something like that. That lesson, now that what it took to make it work, and that carries forward. So just like any disaster, right, and you're doing your after action, kind of study, or if you need a disaster plan, holler at us and we'll work with a template, to give you a disaster plan. But so after any kind of major incident, you need to circle the wagons. What happened? What did we learn? What should we have done different? What did we do right? And then make your plan to adapt from there. So you carry those lessons forward. Businesses who did not do that and just really sucked wind, this is, the grant is going to help them financially for a bit.
Right.
But this is
Long
supposed
term,
to be an adrenaline shot. This is supposed to kick stuff into gear where that they're able to open back up again for whatever for whatever reasons, to kind of give them more time to adapt. So yes, if you had a good year last year, then this is not for you. But you could say that about any kind of other social assistance program or tax program, or you can really say that about anything, is that we want to give a hand up, to people to help them make it so that they can function, not a handout. But for this grant, we're talking about who's eligible. And then I mentioned a little bit about what that formula looks like. And it's a pretty simple formula for businesses that have been around since before 2019. Or if you were in business for all of 2019, the formula is real straightforward. You take your gross sales from 2019, you look at your gross sales from 2020. Hopefully you've done that math. It's May. But you look at the difference between those two amounts, and that difference, if it's at least, if it's smaller than 50%, it's like if you were down more than half of your 2019, this grant is only going to be able to help you get back to that 50% at most. So if you really, really did bad, then, there is a ceiling on that. But anyway, so for most part, 2019 minus 2020, look at that difference. If you did receive a PPP loan, one and two, then you subtract those amount then off the top. And so that should be your max potential on the grant. So whenever you have
same thing with shuttered venue, right? Sorry, Walter.
Again.
Same thing with shuttered venue grant, right? If you already
shuttered
received
venues,
that.
I think is 45% of gross based off of the ticket sales or something like that. I'd have to go back and look at shuttered venue grant.
But if you qualify for both the restaurant revitalization and the shuttered venue, you deduct your.
Correct. Now that portion is the same. Correct. So for SVOG, if you got a second draw loan, your first one's okay, but if you got a second draw loan, that one's reduced from your loan amount. SVOG is a totally different beast. The process on that one, so they've got a lot more hurdles to go through. But we're talking about a smaller, subset of the number of people that are going to be applying. So, but yeah, SVOG is another program out there for venue operators, museums, live theaters, movie theaters, stuff like that. But
you can't get both Sorry, Walter, I keep interrupting you. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. And I talk fast.
It's the hard thing about Zoom, I think. But you can't get both the SVOG and the restaurant revitalization. Correct. I just want to make sure I'm clear on that one.
You need to be strategic on not just which one do you want to do, but also if you're applying for both, you can't have an active application in one while you're pursuing the other. So if you've already pulled the trigger and said, hey, I'd like to do a SVOG grant, which really only opened up, for applications again, last week, then you need to cancel that one if the restaurant grant is going to be something that you go for. And again, if you're in food service, restaurant grant's going to be better, So we were talking about like calculating your loan amount. If you're a business that has not been open all of 2019, you pretty much just get a monthly average of what those sales could have been if you were open for the full year, and then use that. And in the FAQ, in the guide, which is very, very thorough, there's 3 different calculating formulas depending on what your kind of business status is. And so there's one for businesses that, were open prior to 19, businesses that opened a little bit after 19. And then the third calculation is for businesses that have only been open during COVID, which again, this program, this RRF is the first federal program that I have seen that encompasses businesses that started post-COVID. So Formula 3 is for those, and also for businesses that, again, fit these categories that have incurred some costs but have yet to open. So you could be a brand new business that's getting ready to open. I worked with somebody last week to prep their application. They've already incurred, some construction costs, installing a drive-through. They've had some of these eligible expenses already get hit, and they haven't even made their first sale yet. Now, are they going to be funded as quickly or to the amount that everybody else is going to be? We'll see on the SBA, but when we follow the formula, they are actually eligible for some grant funds. There's only $28 billion, which it sounds like a lot, and then you start thinking about how many restaurants there are. There's only $28 billion in the pot. Now there is, I believe, $5 billion set aside for small businesses with gross sales of less than $500,000. So that's going to be most of our small town restaurants, unless you're, something real big on the highway that's catching a lot of traffic. So any kind of grant that is awarded to those businesses comes out of a side pot. So that way, big franchises, big corporate chains, they're not going to be able to get at some of that money. So if you're not able to apply, today or within the first couple of days, do know that there is a set aside for, what we would consider like true, small business. So, it'll be open today. We've talked a little bit about the funding formula. Again, there is a great guide on there. There is a knowledge base that you can click through, and you can see where other people have asked certain questions. Again, if you've got questions, send them to me and I'll point you to the right answer on that. Or again, you can call. But there's a guide on there, and there's also a sample application. I recommend that you download that sample application, work through it, look at the document checklist, scan all of that stuff, and then be ready to apply in one chunk. When it opens today at 11, now this is just pessimist Walter sitting at the desk, it's Monday morning.
Or just historical anecdotal
and based off of, track record for every other program that's launched like this, is that there's been some technical hiccups within the first 24 hours. So I'm eagerly, going to be watching that thing open and start to run through stuff on my end. But
do you love how I knew exactly what you were going to say, Walter?
What's that?
Do you love how I knew exactly what you were going to say?
Yeah. So don't be surprised if it does go down. The SVOG program, which is again a little bit different, they're using the backbone of it to do some of the stuff as the restaurant grant, and they've been doing a pilot program in the background. So this is not, it's not going to be taking its very first application today. It has been running with some pilot businesses, but I would not be surprised if it did have some issues today, because there's so many eligible businesses. There's also a priority funding period. So if you meet a certain criteria for ownership and control of the business, so it's ownership and control, that there is a 21-day, so a 3-week priority funding period where only businesses that are owned and managed by minorities, women-owned, veteran-owned, socially and economically disadvantaged businesses, where they will, as soon as the first grant is made, so as soon as the first check gets cut, the first deposit into an account, that 3-week window opens, and for the next 21 days, only businesses that meet that criteria are going to get funded. Unfortunately, that's not an application window, that's a funding window. So everybody can apply. So again, that's why I'm expecting a pretty big surge on the website this morning.
And is SBA the one determining who's in that, socioeconomic disadvantaged group? Or
yes. So when you are applying, right, and there's a box that says, hey, I'm in this group, you're self-certifying that you're in that group. Are you going to be required to provide documentation? Not unless the SBA asks for it. Now, so there is some definitions for socially and economically disadvantaged businesses, and it has really more to do with access to capital because of whatever situation it is that you're in. So my, heartstrings again was like, oh, well, rural communities, like we're economically disadvantaged because we don't have the same access to capital, like that a business in DFW would have. And that's partially true, but with online lenders and again, your community lenders really, reaching out to help these guys
Absolutely.
survive, deferring loan payments, increasing lines of credit, whatever it is that local lenders have done. So can you do that? Yes. But you need to, as a part of that process in that certification, you have to write a letter that says, I'm fit this category, I'm economically disadvantaged because, and then you list your reasons. So it's totally possible for you to do that. Don't think that it's without a reach.
That seems very
open for abuse.
Fact-based.
Open for abuse. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
It seems very subjective, I guess is the word I was going to use.
Very subjective.
Like, there's no,
the SBA will do audits, so it's not just like with PPP, there's sample audits on that stuff. That's
but if you say, but I do believe that you know what I mean? Like they can't do an audit on what you think is true and not true.
That's correct. Yeah. Those are great thoughts to pass along to your Congress people. Because we've already sent some stuff their way, not us as the SBDC, but people we've been working with, where we have seen a couple of holes, or some things that could be better fine-tuned with some legislation. But so that's what your Congress folks are for, because they can directly work, to make changes and talk to the SBA at the federal level on what changes they think that need to be made based off of feedback. Because again, if they don't hear from you, then how are they supposed to know that maybe these two puzzle pieces don't fit together as well as we thought?
Absolutely.
So again, there's a sample form, a list of documentation that you're going to need. We've talked about when you can apply, who's in that priority group. We talked about the set-asides. We've talked about how much money that you can get. Now let's talk about what you can spend the money on. And when you get your grant, right, fingers crossed, when you get your grant, you can use these funds for a much broader use than PPP. So PPP was very payroll-oriented, very focused on job retention. So the restaurant grant is way broader. So not only can you use it on payroll and utilities and rent and stuff like that before, but now you can actually make your mortgage payments in full with this. You can pay credit cards with it. You can pay building maintenance, okay, especially if you've had a building that was sitting vacant or partially vacant, you still had bills to pay, and so there may be some deferred maintenance that you need to catch up on.
What about inventory?
Yes, food costs.
Nice.
So that's the big one, right, is food costs. So if I have to buy alcohol or flour or sugar or whatever it is that's there for essential for your business, and there are not percentages of that you have to hit. So if you know that you really need to spend a lot on food costs because that's working capital, right? So some of this other stuff, I don't need to be able to turn a profit. I got to be able to buy, the flour. I got to be able to buy the sugar. I got to be able to buy whatever. So yes, food costs are included in that. Just normal operating expenses. You can pay your insurance. You could pay your chamber membership. You could do some advertising with it. Really, it's a very big umbrella. But one of the things that I would point out is that you can spend these funds in a window called the covered period. Okay, so and that's going to sound familiar from like PPP, but your covered period for the restaurant grant is actually retroactive. It goes back to, I want to say mid-March of 2020.
2020.
Yeah, I want to say it's March.
I forget what year we're in.
Yeah, and it's hard to keep all these dates. Let's just see.
So that's awesome though. So we had some restaurants that when they were shut down completely, they took advantage of that time to go in and do some updating, remodeling, things like that. So you're saying these funds could apply to that then?
Yes, retroactively.
That is amazing. That's really good news. That's great.
Let's look that up real quick. And then, again, they've updated the website. And there's a webinar too, like there's live webinars or recordings of webinars. So if you have questions about it, you're not helpless. So there's stuff out there.
There's lots of resources.
All right, give me just a second on this covered period because I know I'm going to get asked again later today.
While you're looking that up, I'm going to challenge everyone who's watching, and thank you again for watching, but I'll challenge you to tag a restaurant. We'll say your favorite restaurant, but if you don't want to pick a favorite, just a restaurant in the comments, just to make sure we get the word out to these restaurants. So I'll challenge you all to do that. Whether you're watching live or you watch it after the fact, leave that, tag a restaurant in the comments.
Okay, so it starts February 15th, 2020. and ends March 11th of 2023. So you have plenty of time to spend the money. And we all know it's so easy to spend someone else's money rather than your own. So
So
people
good at that.
shouldn't, yeah, so people should not worry about not being able to hit the deadline. Now, as far as reporting requirements, you are going to have to fill out some reports each year that your funds remain unspent. If somehow, again, you haven't spent them in 2021,
Which would be odd.
you'll need to do an annual report with the SBA to let them know how things were spent. But that's all normal stuff, right? That's a part of normal record keeping
Absolutely.
and stuff that we would encourage every business to do, regardless of whether you're doing a federal program or not, is to keep track of your money.
Yes. I
So
would
yeah,
advise
so
you to do that at your own home as well.
yeah, you should do that at home.
Yeah.
So for February 15th, that's when at 2020, that's when the covered period begins. So if you incurred some expenses that fit these categories that you kind of want to like reimburse yourself for, that you can do that. Go after the big ticket items, food costs, go after construction costs, go after, if you built a window, if you built the stuff that we were talking about before to adapt your business and you did spend the money because you had it in your pocket. Well, now you can kind of put that back into your bank account. And again, when you go through the reporting process, you'll say, well, look, I installed a drive-through or a speaker system or a new point of sale or whatever it is that fits that category, and plug it in and keep your receipts and stuff for that.
And payroll should be other than I guess food cost, you'd think payroll would be up there. And as long as does it have to be a different window than the PPP, I guess?
Say it again.
Does it have to be a separate window covered period than the PPP?
So it doesn't have to, it can be the same covered period, but it can't be the same money. So if I paid 2 months of payroll for my workers, when I'm going back and saying, well, I used my restaurant grant money to reimburse myself for expenses paid, it couldn't be for those same 2 months.
Gotcha. Which makes sense.
No double counting.
Right.
Which again should be easy. We all had plenty of bills last year.
Sure.
So, speaking of point of sale, there is another way to apply that is I'm excited about because it's very new, and this is a good sign that the SBA is modernizing, just like any other federal agency.
I was reading about this and I was kind of confused about it, so I'm glad you're going to address it.
So if you use a modern point of sale system, which there's tons of benefits to doing that, you can apply through your point of sale business. So if you use
Square. Yeah.
So if you use Square, if you use Toast, if you use Clover, or Aloha or Oracle, those are the ones right now. If it's one of those programs that's either under them or uses that as a framework, look to your point of sale provider and say, hey, are you guys what is called a recognized point of sale system with SBA? And those are listed on the SBA website right now. So as more are added, it will be there. But look to your point of sale provider and say, look, are you guys doing the RRF application process? And they'll say yes or no. If the answer is yes, you will go through them to apply because they already have all the documentation. Well, they have most of the documentation that you're going to need to be able to give to the SBA to show that you're a business with a pulse, with expenses. I got a tax ID. Here's my gross receipts records. They'll have all of that stuff. So that's new.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's new. It
really
should speed up the application process. But don't be surprised if it does have some hiccups or it takes time for maybe your point of sale provider to jump on that list. It may be better for you to just apply online. If you got the documentation, it's pretty easy. It's all historical information. If you use one of those modern point of sale systems and they aren't listed, well, guess what? A modern point of sale system should be helping you with reports. Okay, let's just say it was Touch Bistro. Well, Touch Bistro, run me a report for my gross sales for 2019. And in a minute, you've got the information that you need. But that's provided that you've been entering your information.
And can I just say, if you're not using a modern point of sale, I would highly recommend that you look at some of those options because, and I think most are, honestly, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but I think most are restaurant and retail, but that's so convenient.
The biggest pushback is going to be, oh, it's new. Okay, I have to learn something different. It's not going to work. Yes. I know this method. I can run this method faster. And while that may be true for many businesses, it may not be true for your employees. Okay, as your workforce is more technologically savvy and continues to be so, your customers, they're going to be more connected to some digital stuff like that a point of sale can do.
And I'll say something a little more brutally honest, even, Walter. It may not be true for your competitors, and that's a problem.
Yeah, and your customers are going to expect it, because if I can get a more seamless checkout process, I want that.
Absolutely. And a receipt emailed or texted to you, and I mean, just makes it so convenient and easy.
And it pays off in the long run. And again, what I really like is that you can run reports. You can look at your numbers. So not only are you balancing the till at the end of the day, which it can help you do faster, and it can also break down what your trends are. Okay, well, how many of these combo platters am I selling? How much of how many people are doing add-ons for dessert, or how many, what's my average ticket price? And you can look at times of day, and so you can get some really advanced reporting that will let you manage your business a little bit better, or maybe get more insight into how things are going that can help you make some more tweaks to become more profitable. But if you want to work on that stuff, holler at us at the SBDC. We're free. We just need to set an appointment to work together. So we've talked about the guide. We've covered all the main stuff. Again, you can go to sba.gov/RRF, or just go to the SBA website and look for the restaurant link on there, and it'll take you there. And that's pretty much everything. From a high level, is to go there, get what you need. If you have questions, call us, but review that guide first. You are really probably going to find the answer to most of your questions in that guide. And I'm singing praises to the SBA that they have done an excellent job on SVOG and the restaurant grant. Is that when information was available, it's pretty thorough and it's on there.
Yes.
You just need to get through and open the documents and read through it. There's only been, I think, 2 questions that I was not super sure of, where I had to go to like the legislative text that created the RRF to get some sort of guide on how this might be handled. But there's some really good content on there.
Well, I'm impressed. And I pick on the SBA sometimes. When we talked with Linda last week, and I said, okay, Linda, so just on a 1 to 10 scale, what are the odds that this website's going to crash the day that the application goes live? I don't think it was well received. Sorry, Linda. But I like to pick on them, but I also want to make sure that I say thank you so much to the SBA. Thank you to the SBDC. This is a time where businesses have faced unique challenges. Many of them have adapted, and I think that's something we should all be really proud of. And I think it's great that the government is trying to help businesses stay in business. I get a little frustrated sometimes about some of the programs.
About how and who. Yeah.
But I think overall, we're all in agreement, especially small businesses, that's our foundation of our economy. And especially, like you said, in rural communities, we rely on those small businesses to make this a community. So unbelievably important. I'm so glad these options are available. And I want to encourage everyone to share this information. Please pass it along. Even if it's not a local restaurant, still send the information. We want this getting out to anyone and everyone, especially if it's
I did the same. Like places I travel to, I was like, hey, you're not in my area, but I love your food. Please do this, because I want you to be here.
I need you to stay in business.
I want you to be here next time I roll through town.
Because listen, we all love to eat, right? I mean, that's something we can absolutely all agree on. So let's do everything we can to help our restaurants. They were there for us last year through a really difficult period. I can't brag on them enough. So proud. But now it's our turn to be able to support them a little bit, get this information to them, encourage them to apply, because these funds will run out, and we want as much of that going to our favorite restaurants as possible.
Yeah, it's going to be really competitive. So yes. Act quickly. Again, I don't want rural businesses to get left out because they didn't know. And again, like I said, over the past couple weeks, the ratio of people who even knew what I was talking about. I talked to one sports bar and grill that he had already gotten the sample application filled out. And I high-fived that guy so hard, my hand almost broke.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I was like, man, you need to know about it, because how else? Because you're busy running your restaurant, you're busy running your life. Right. Everybody's got stuff going on. How are you going to know about this? And the details change, which is another, and probably my final point on this, is that you mentioned before about connecting with your Chamber of Commerce on social media. Yeah, read your emails, or just pay attention to that stuff. At the least check them out on social media. You should probably do that for the SBA as well and the SBDC, because
Absolutely.
as more programs get announced, or there are major tweaks that open the eligibility or more money or changes to the program, or let's say the website does crash and it gets taken down for a few days until they figure out, how to fix it or something. When it goes back on, you don't want to be behind, you want to know, hey, well, we've announced it's going to open tomorrow at noon. And so that you can be ready to do that rather than just, well, oops, I forgot about it. Now all the money's gone. So connect with the SBDC and the SBA on social media. That's something that you just kind of have to get in the habit of doing.
I think we need one of those memes that says like, oh, all the funds ran out and I was about to apply. Like, don't be that person,
Yeah, no, you don't want to be that person.
Don't be that person. Okay, well,
I think that's it. I think that's the highlights of it.
Awesome. I'm going to check and make sure, let me see if anybody has questions. I think so. One last time, I want to encourage you all to share this on your personal page or tag your favorite restaurant. You don't have to say this is my favorite restaurant because I don't, you may not want to pick and choose, or tag them all, whatever. But thank you for watching. And Walter, thank you again so much for your time this morning. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And I appreciate you having me again.
Absolutely. Talk with you soon.
We'll see you.
Bye.